on this beautiful, beautiful day, one where I may be taken away by a tornado at any moment. But after looking at today's agenda, I felt like there was no way to make it through without a cigar. So here we are. We're back on SFR. We took last week off, call it our spring break, though only one of us really had any fun last week. Lane, looking at you. For the rest of us, we all worked. The news didn't stop. So we've got 2 weeks of developments here to cover, including some pretty emotional topics. This might be, by the end of it, our most emotional SFR. We're going to find out, but there are some weighty topics here in this agenda. So let's get into it. We got Craig Wilcox. He's state senator for the 32nd District, former member of the McHenry County Board. He's a small business owner. I know you've been hustling the last week or so in your local business, and an Air Force vet. Colonel, what's going on?
Thank you very much. Appreciate being on all the time. Sorry for the kind of vacant back, but we are being asked to vacate this. So a lot of that Department 56 is headed to the basement under our other retail stores. So yeah, it's been a little bit of work, and I have till Sunday to finish.
Yeah, well, I love it when they say, like, hey, you've got a week that you're not in Springfield, you're getting a week off. It's like, yeah, no, that's not how it works.
Not as a
People have
business
real
owner.
jobs. They've got community events to go to. That's not how it works. We also have with us Larry Falbe. Not only is he the president of the Lake County Republican Federation, he's also been a good friend for a long time. He's been in politics for decades and decades, old man. He's been an elected official. He's an attorney, and he's probably the most sarcastic person I know. So I'm hoping we get some of that wit in today's episode.
I prefer to call it a dry wit, not a sarcastic wit.
Okay.
But thank you for having me back, because I don't get asked back to a lot of places.
Well, based on your introduction, it seems to make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
As always, we've got Michael, we've got Chris. Chris is supposed to be at the White Sox home opener, but it looks like they ain't playing today, so we get Chris. I'm sorry to say for our audience. Michael, we have him in whatever shirt that is. But we were commenting for the episode. Looks like he's got a little hair going on. Maybe it's just to make the senator a little jealous. I don't know.
I almost got a haircut today, but there was like a 4-person line, and my barber was like, "You might just come back another day."
A whole 4 people?
Yeah,
Sheesh.
he was solo. There's usually 2 people in there cutting. There was only one, so he's like, maybe just come back later.
You Gen
Well, we'll
Zers
have to
can't
wait
even
till
wait
after
for
Easter.
you Gen
Butler,
Zers can't even wait for a haircut.
These
Butler,
kids
you come
have
up,
no attention span.
I think my barber was ready to get out of there. He's like, please leave.
Butler, you
Four
come
is
up
enough
here.
for the day.
You come up here. I'll take you to my barber. We'll get you right, buddy. All right.
All right.
It was
Start
probably
looking
the
like
shirt.
Chris. All right. Yeah, I think a stop at the local mall might be a good idea too. But
Is that like a Ducks Unlimited shirt or something?
Yeah, it's got a bunch of
Free with
ducks
donation?
on it. Yep, that's right.
well, Teddy likes ducks, so if he sees you quack on the episode, he'll appreciate that.
Sounds good.
All right, well, let's do it. Any other week, we probably would be starting with the tragedy that happened in Chicago while we were taking our week off, which almost made us come back and do the episode last week. But our producer was out of town, so we kind of couldn't. But this isn't a normal week. There's a story that didn't actually break over the last week or two. But you're going to learn a little bit about it here, because this story broke in early February. Heartbreaking story about a young boy, 8 years old, who was abused. He was tortured. His mother's boyfriend took videos of himself abusing this kid and his 10-year-old sister. He was eating out of the trash. He starved to death. Just absolutely heartbreaking story. And I read it back when it broke in February, and this stuff hits home for me with my little boy. I can't do it. But DCFS came out and said this family was not receiving services from DCFS when the story broke, so I didn't really bring it up on SFR. It wasn't really a political story, so I just endured it in my own way, separate from our political stuff that we do here. But then the truth came out. Credit to the Chicago Tribune for doing a extensive expose on this. I don't love the timing, though, whether it was DCFS's fault or the Trib or whoever. This got buried the day before Election Day. None of us saw it. Nobody saw it. And a few other people eventually covered it again right around Election Day. Based on how DCFS lied to us initially, I'm inclined to believe that this was all intentional, because I consider myself pretty up on the news. It's my job to know what's going on. I had no idea. And I've brought this up to a few people. They had no idea. This effectively did get dumped with the trash. And an 8-year-old boy deserves better than that, because here's the truth. There were at least 7 complaints lodged with DCFS. DCFS conducted 4 different investigations and did nothing. Their last investigation, air quotes, they tried calling the mother a couple times and she didn't answer, so they closed the investigation. That was the extent that this 8-year-old boy's life was worth. A couple months later, this precious little boy was gone. He was abused. His 10-year-old sister was abused. They had a young sibling who apparently was not abused. They say he was 2 or 3 years old. I don't remember. This is not okay. We keep having stories like this, and we see situations like what DCFS did here. They lied initially. Now, it was a JB Pritzker lie. Let's be clear. It was an attorney's lie. Larry could teach us all about this. Every word that they said was true.
No offense.
Every word they said was true. This family was not receiving services from DCFS at that time. You could parse it, but the reality is, yeah, okay, they didn't expressly lie, but they lied. And we see this over and over. This shouldn't be something that you cover up. This shouldn't be something that you lie about. And it sure as heck shouldn't be something that JB Pritzker completely ignores. I understand the political realities of this, that Pritzker wants to run for president, and admitting that there are problems at DCFS would kill his national ambitions. I'm aware of the political ramifications. I'm a political expert. I get it. But this is an 8-year-old boy, and it's not the last time. We have Craig here. I mean, Craig can tell us all about AJ Friend back from 2019, a 5-year-old boy who was found in a shallow grave after years of abuse. This 8-year-old boy had been abused for 4 years. Think about that. That's all he knew. His entire life was abuse until he died from starvation. This is not okay. We talked about Mackenzie Femley last year. We haven't covered some of these other stories like Barrett Coaches or Cox, Amaria Osby, Navin Jones. There are story after story, and we don't know all the stories. That's the killer part here, because DCFS refuses to follow the law and release when somebody under their care dies or suffers a serious injury in this injury in the state's care. DCFS is refusing to release those reports. So all we know is what this Illinois Answers Project from almost exactly a year ago said, which is that we had more than 1,200 deaths since July of 2018, almost entirely under JB Pritzker's lead. I use that word sarcastically in Illinois. That's a year ago. We have no updated stats, no updated details. So the story about Markel Pierce is heartbreaking. There are many, many more stories we don't even know. This is not okay. It is time for JB Pritzker to finally be governor 7 years into his term, actually step up and say, I am the leader of the state, the buck stops with me, and I'm going to do something about this. And I will marshal every resource at my disposal. And I know Craig and Larry and all of us, Republicans will get on board with this just like Democrats would if we actually had a leader in the governor's mansion who said, these are kids. These are the least fortunate among us, the most needy among us. We have to do a better job by them. Let's go get it done. This should be all we talk about for the next year until it's fixed. I am sick and tired of having to talk about this on SFR, and I'm sick and tired of having a governor who's not willing to actually lead in this damn state. These are kids. They are blanking kids. Do something about it. All right, enough from me. Thoughts from anybody else on DCFS?
I think there's a couple really important points you made there, Collin. First of all, standard disclaimer, my opinions today are mine. They're not my law firms. They're not, certainly not our clients. They're not even the Republican federations. It's just me. But one of the really important things, Collin, you hit on, this is not new. This has been going on for a long time. This is 2 terms of 4 years each, right? And DCFS was a problem we knew for a long, long time. And we can't really see any improvement, right? In the particular Pierce case, you were right, Collin. I think they did parse the response, but there were complaints going back, I think, to 2022, right? This wasn't a week. This wasn't a month, and it just didn't get the attention it should have. This is an ongoing thing, right? And when you have this trail of mismanagement, and then from the top, not doing anything to reform the agency. If the governor had reformed the agency and done a really great job, I think Republicans are really good about giving credit where credit is due. And we'd say, hey, good job. We don't like your politics, but that was something you did well. But in fact, we have exactly the opposite. And I think the media does not pay enough attention. And maybe the attention's all about, the stars in Washington and maybe being president.
So this issue has existed since I've been in the Senate. We have had legislative hearings led by majority Dem senators without the involvement of the governor's office to allow current and former members of DCFS to come talk to us openly without fear of reprisal from the executive. There is nothing being done to fix the issues, right? They finally replaced a director. That's not fixing it. So that's the state aspect. There are legislators on both sides ready to dig in on this topic and deal with it. Now, this is a horrible incident. It's happening in Lake County, happened in Lake County. Many of the lead members of that legislative group are from Lake County. It is now on those legislators and that state's attorney to follow the lead out of McHenry. If you haven't been following, Carlos Acosta, the DCFS worker, had the appellate court uphold his convictions basically for dereliction of duty in the AJ Friend. I saw the state's attorney came out, first-degree murder charges on the parents, but what I haven't seen yet is that investigation into DCFS at the local level and actually holding an employee or employees accountable for what they let happen. And that's exactly the wording. They let it happen. Failure to do their jobs, failure to follow through, failure to be proactive. And I will be watching, unfortunately, the Lake County State's Attorney's Office. I'd love to hear that they reach out to McHenry and review the previous case and learn how you prosecute something like that and get it held up in appeals.
Yep. I mean, you've got Randy Freeze, the current McHenry County State's Attorney, Pat Keneally, obviously a friend of the program and us, the previous state's attorney who were the ones who did this. And that was, Craig, I want to make it clear, that was the first time this has happened in the country that they were able to pull that off. And so that was groundbreaking, and more of it needs to be done. And I'm sick and tired of hearing the left say that when law enforcement does something wrong, they should be held criminally accountable, which, by the way, I agree with, and I take some flack from Republicans for it, but I'm intellectually consistent. But suddenly when it's DCFS, no, they shouldn't be held liable. Listen, I think what Larry said, I would agree with in terms of if Pritzker was actually trying to resolve this and actually working to fix the problem, the reality is bad people do bad things and people make mistakes. And so if there was a concerted effort for 7 years to try to solve this while Pritzker's been in office and this happened, I would have a heck of a lot more grace because my sister has worked for other agencies in other states similar to DCFS. This stuff happens. It's awful. It's gut-wrenching. But like it does happen. So it's not to say that every situation that ever happened is Pritzker's fault. But when you're doing essentially nothing to try to resolve it, yeah, actually now it is all of your fault. And I want to see this highlighted in the governor's race because this is the kind of thing that can get Republicans and Democrats, independents, all to agree that it's time for a change. That if our governor doesn't care about this 8-year-old boy or 5-year-old AJ Friend out of McHenry County, then you know what? He doesn't deserve to be governor.
Well, and I think, we've had, like you said, 1,200, during Pritzker, at least more, over the course of the last 8 years. So that shows that it's not, you expect there's going to be, some instances where maybe something falls through the cracks or, the ball's dropped. It wasn't, it happens. We're all human. But 1,200 over that course of time proves to me that it's a systemic issue and that there need to be some more safeguards put in place. Maybe they need to be updating some of their practices. Maybe their employees need to be, trained more frequently. But this is happening all over the state, I mean, there was one in St. Clair County this past year, right? It's happened in Lake. It's happened in McHenry. I'm sure, 1,200 cases, 102 counties. There's probably at least one case in every county, statistically speaking. So this is a serious problem, and you would think this would be an issue where The adults could get in the room and say, okay, well, what are we going to do to reduce the likelihood of cases like this happening again? And unfortunately, that has not happened. And I think, Pritzker is the one that probably needs to say, all right, well, let's get together. Welch, Pritzker, somebody. I mean, they're in charge.
I think, Collin, you bring up a good point here about governance because I've been a long-standing advocate to the idea that like iron sharpens iron. Okay, when you have a competent opposition party, it breeds competence from the majority party. And one of the problems is when you're Governor Pritzker or you're just a politician in 2026 in general, when you consider that the only thing that matters to me is if I can get reelected or the only thing that matters to me is that I can run for president or I can run for some higher office. Things like this tend to slip through the cracks because what you want, if you're that type of politician, is you want to talk about sexy things. You want to talk about things that sound good on a mail piece, things that sound good in a TV ad, and things like cleaning up DCFS. We all agree on this podcast. This could be a huge win for the administration if they did something about it, but that's not the mentality. The mentality is how does this raise me money? How does this win me votes with a Democratic base nationwide? It doesn't come down to good government anymore because people are, and I'm not painting a large brush. This isn't me saying that every politician is like this, but it is to say that so many politicians view things through how does this benefit me in the long term, or most of the time it's the short term. How does this benefit me in the short term politically? And the reality is right now is I don't think anybody in the executive branch of government in the state of Illinois is thinking in the long term about how we can fix DCFS and check that box off for Pritzker's legacy. Because Pritzker's legacy in their eyes is, can this guy get to be the Democratic nominee for president and win the White House? That's all they care about.
And the problem is, I mean, we're obviously hyper-focused on DCFS as we should be, but Craig, I know you and I have vented about IDOC in the past, about IDIS in the past. There are so many different departments that under JB Pritzker that are horribly managed because we don't have an active governor in this state. And real people are getting hurt. I mean, the stories are absolutely heartbreaking. We just have a governor who does not care because it can all be sacrificed on the altar of his national political ambitions.
Can I just say one thing before we move off this? Because I felt this way a long time. I'm a pretty laissez-faire, free trade, libertarian Republican, but even I think there should be some kind of licensing requirement for parents to have children because there's a lot of people out there reproducing that have no business being parents, and it's tragic and it sucks. It's just awful. But if this is the agency that's supposed to step in when things end up like this, they've got to be doing their job.
I'll just add one last thing. It's not hard to fathom how incidents like this lead you to a direct line that despite Illinois' horrific business environment, there are job growth. It's in state government. And if you start holding state employees accountable for the work they're supposed to be due, what's that going to do to the unemployment? If state employees are expected to just be a jobs growth perspective and no accountability for what the job is supposed to be doing, that might explain a lot of the lackluster effort of the executive office on doing anything to fix state agencies with problems.
Good. Interesting thought. I'll close with this. It seems like based on JB Pritzker's rhetoric and Juliana Stratton's rhetoric, his lieutenant governor, the only word they seem to understand is the F word, and it's the only word that seems to get them to actually move. So Lane will bleep this out in post, but here's the point I want to make to JB Pritzker. Markel Pierce, Mackenzie Felmley, AJ Friend, these young kids should still be alive today. Kids are dying, so lead or get the out of the way. With that, let's go to our next topic. You think that the emotional topics are done? Huh? They're not. Now let's move to an 18-year-old girl who's now paid the ultimate price because politicians refuse to fix immigration. Jose Medina, a illegal immigrant, killed this 18-year-old girl, Sheridan Gorman, in Chicago. This was over a week ago, but we didn't have an episode last week. This young girl and some of her friends were walking to the pier to the beach, essentially. And according to a Chicago alderman, we're in the wrong place at the wrong time, and maybe they startled this individual and just happened to get shot in the back execution style as a result. This is the kind of thing that just shouldn't happen. And the frustration is real from a lot of people because this individual was caught at the border and under Joe Biden's policies led into the country. So caught, stopped, but all right, come on in, it's all good. And then not that long later was caught in Chicago committing a crime and was let out. And now here, a young 18-year-old girl is dead. And I'm summarizing. I'm sure there's more details that some of you will want to share. And I've got some thoughts on just my frustrations with both parties right now when it comes to immigration. Certainly, these were a lot of failures by the left, a lot of failures by Biden's immigration policies, especially his border policies, failures by, it was a retail theft under Kim Foxx, and Kim Foxx made it clear she was not going to prosecute retail thefts in Chicago. So these are a lot of failures in Brandon Johnson and not finding this individual who had an active warrant. So there are a lot of failures on the left on this topic, which is why they don't want us talking about it. But I also feel like there are failures on the right where we could actually improve immigration. And I've voiced this on previous episodes, and we haven't. And so I'm just fed up with both parties. But I have a feeling you guys are going to want to tee off on the left. So I'm going to let you do that before I play party pooper. So go ahead.
Look, I went to Loyola University Chicago, and I know exactly where this incident happened. And when I went to Loyola, it was always understood amongst the students that there are certain parts around campus that you're not supposed to go because, parts of Rogers Park are rougher than other parts of Rogers Park. So there's always been nervousness about crime in the city of Chicago around Loyola University. But in this day and age, one of the problems is that we have actively tried not to prosecute crime for one reason or another. And in an incident like this, where there was seemingly no motive for this crime, where Sheridan Gorman just happened to be walking across the pier at the wrong time of night, the wrong person happened to be there, and she's gone. And we're just supposed to sit back and say, well, the right and the rhetoric and immigration, they're not solving any of the problems. And, we need to have, there was a Republican governor. I've seen so many news articles say, well, Bruce Rauner is the one who signed the sanctuary state policy in the law, and he was a Republican. It's like, this is such crap. Because every time somebody dies from an illegal immigrant or from a recidivist criminal, it always comes back to, look what the left did, look what the right did, blah, 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 blah. Let's stop for a moment and think that the American people, by and large, according to every poll that ever existed, wants to put criminals in jail, does not want criminal illegal aliens to be in this country. This is simple stuff. It's a winning issue for both sides. And if we could just come together and acknowledge the fact that if you commit crimes, you should go to jail. And if you're in this country and you commit illegally and you commit crimes, you should be deported. Everything could be so much simpler. But the problem is that we don't think that. The left thinks about, immigration reform. We can't just deport everybody and then another person gets killed by an illegal immigrant. And it shouldn't have to be like that. People shouldn't be fearing for their lives when they're walking down the beach or they're walking down Sheridan Road at Loyola University Chicago, because people in this country just can't figure out that if you commit crimes, you should go to jail. So that's where I'm at with it.
There are a lot of things about this that bothered me. One, believe it or not, was the reaction of the student newspaper, right? Because their main goal, it seemed like, was to be politically correct and apologize for the terminology they used in their first news article, illegal alien. That's the legal term. That's the status of that individual. It's not a judgment on their character or their right to exist or anything that the left wants to conflate with that terminology. It's a simple expression of their legal right to be in this country, which they had none. So focusing on that, I think, deflects from the real issue, certainly. I think the wrong place, wrong time idea, honestly, not the right frame. There was the local alderman who got in big trouble for saying that, verging on victim shaming, right? Yeah, there's some bad parts of Chicago that most people know not to go into, but the added facet of this individual's immigration status just compounds the issue, right?
Yeah. Well, and let's just say Maria Haddon gets an early nod for Clown of the Week, which I'm sure we'll have a lot of nominations this week, but she certainly is going to be in the list.
I think the core issue is, why do we need to accept that it's okay to have places in a major city where the majority of your residents should choose not to go willingly? There should not be no-go zones anywhere in this country. And those that know have started talking that this looks an awful lot potentially like a gang initiation type killing. So the question is there going to be a crackdown on the gangs that knowingly use this as an initiation structure? And what will Chicago do to start cleaning up those areas that might be considered no-go zones?
And there are photos going around that I've seen of the, individual that shot her flashing gang signs, downtown Chicago, group of people. He's in the photo, he's flashing gang signs. So I would imagine that's correct. Like the senator said, that there probably is some kind of, gang affiliation associated with this.
Well, that reminds me, the third thing that really upset me about this story was the lack of recognition that this is an issue. This is a safety issue. Like Craig, you were saying, where is the accountability? Where is the recognition and acknowledging that issue at the highest levels of political leadership in the city and the state? It's not there. They're running away from it as fast as they possibly can.
Yeah. I mean, it's a rush to assign blame. You had Pritzker come out and say, well, the Trump administration, reading here, needs to stop politicizing heinous tragedies. Well, he then immediately goes and blames Trump for this. I mean, I'm old enough to remember when Pritzker immedially blamed Trump for Charlie Kirk getting assassinated. But, whatever. We should stop politicizing tragedies. JB Pritzker saying this, king of hypocrites. But I will say the rush to find somebody to blame other than your side was just sickening to me. Bailey said that Pritzker signed the Trust Act, which is untrue. It was Rauner. Brandon Johnson said that Rauner signed the Safety Act. No, it wasn't. It was Pritzker. But everyone, Pritzker on down, everyone found somebody to blame. And this is, just like the last topic, I understand this is a political show. I get it. But I am increasingly sick and tired of politics, especially when it comes to people dying. If we want to play politics when it doesn't have to do with people's lives, all right, fine, I get it. That's, I make a living doing that. But when people are dying, I believe that should stop politics right there. And it should be about, what do we need to do to resolve this problem? The reality is, let's talk about the Trust Act. I'm sick of the Trust Act. This idea that we need to repeal it immediately, which is what Bailey and others are pushing for, I respect if somebody holds that position. But that's not the solution that will ever pass down in Springfield. And if you elect a Republican governor, this was a duly passed law. They cannot just on day one issue an executive order, and it's not possible. So let's talk about what could actually get done in blue Illinois. And on the left, Pritzker and the media and others sharing this lie that the Trust Act is going to stop local law enforcement from working with federal law enforcement on immigration matters. No, it absolutely does. You see, they're pulling the Pritzker lie. Every word is parsed, and they're not actually lying, but the reality is, if you ask any local law enforcement agency in this state, they will tell you that the way the Trust Act is worded, they've been advised by legal counsel that they cannot just touch anything related to immigration. So Pritzker's not lying that it isn't expressly prohibited, but it is, and he knows it. So why can't we just all be adults, sit around a table, and say, here are the common sense reforms we're going to make right now to the Trust Act? Because Pritzker has said that he agrees that local law enforcement should be able to work with federal law enforcement when it comes to getting rid of illegal immigrants who are here, who commit crimes here. So let's put it to the test and let's say, fine, here you go, Governor. Here's the damn bill. Now sign it. And actually, you know what? Help us pass it, because your party's the one that's going to block it when we try to get this done. There's a common sense thing we could do right now, but Republicans are just screaming about repealing the Trust Act, which will never happen. And Democrats are lying and saying the Trust Act doesn't stop law enforcement from doing their jobs, which is a lie. Could we please, for once, just be adults and go do the right thing that'll help people? Because people are dying. An 18-year-old girl just lost her life. How many more have to die before you actually go do your jobs and govern?
It frustrates me, Collin, every time that there's a tragedy in relation to illegal immigration. The Republicans just line up and they all want to talk. They want, again, in politics, you never want to let a tragedy go to race. That's what they teach you on day one in political operations. I understand that. But like the Republican Party right now has zero credibility. Zero zip zilch. They have lost so much credibility on the immigration issue. They have lost so much credibility on so many other issues. It will be so much more productive if we actually went down to Springfield, actually got Democrats on board with this issue, because Lord knows there are Democrats on board with this issue. Chicago aldermen are talking about this issue as something that needs to change. We could actually fix something in this state if everyone just sat down at the damn table and did something about it. But instead, we need to make everything a political issue. We need to roll out the red carpet. We need a national politician to start talking about Loyola University of Chicago, and nobody wants to hear it. Nobody wants to hear this nonsense. They want to hear about what is actually going to get done so that there's not another tragedy like Sheridan Gorman in the United States of America. That's what they want to hear. They don't want to hear about more virtue signaling to your echo chambers. This is nonsense, people. Like, let's get out of this mentality that every time this happens, we need to roll out the White House press secretary. We need to be talking about this issue. Listen, let's actually get something done and stop talking about things. God's sake.
Because there is a lot of blame to go around. The left can blame the right can blame the left, and there is a lot of blame to go around. But I know one 18-year-old girl who doesn't give a crap about who's to blame, and I know her family and their statements have echoed this. They don't care who's to blame, just fix it. And right now, the governor is a Democrat, the head of the Senate's a Democrat, head of the House is a Democrat, the mayor of Chicago is a Democrat. So right now, it's on the Democrats to go and solve this. I agree with Chris. I said it before. I'd love Republicans to go down there and try to push on this, but the leaders of this state are of the Democratic Party. An 18-year-old girl is dead. Go do your damn jobs.
Can I just make one point about that? I mean, there has been one significant change under the Trump administration, which was basically sealing that southern border tight. And if you remember, and that's not a small thing, if you remember, the Democrats right around election time kept saying, oh my, we've got this legislation. If only the Republicans would vote for this legislation, it would solve this problem. But they didn't, and it's their fault. If you remember all that. Mm-hmm. And Trump showed they didn't need any legislation. He just did it. They sealed it. I mean, crossings are down to almost nothing.
I will.
We shut the southern border. Fantastic. Good job, Trump. I mean, what's happening after that? We can't just this is the problem with Republicans, is that they do this one thing. It's like, okay, it was extremely easy to close the southern border, apparently. Okay. Why are these things still happening?
Fair enough.
Why
it's not the whole solution.
Immigration reform in this country. Why are we just sitting around doing this?
Fair enough. It's not the whole solution, but it was a significant step.
Yeah, and even Bernie Sanders gave Trump credit for it. So you're right. Securing the border was a major step, and Trump does.
I mean, and that had to happen, Chris, before you can do all the other things. And I agree with you.
Yeah. Okay, that happens day one. You say they shut the southern border. Okay, Trump's been in office for over a year now, and it seems like the most significant thing we've done is just go to war with Iran for no reason. So, like,
we'll get into that in a minute, Chris. Craig's been trying to jump in. Go ahead, Craig.
Yeah, Chris, I agree, and here's the path, right? We need absolute pathway to citizenship. Now, whether you start it for the day before Biden's administration, and there's a different set of rules for the last 5 years of those who've entered, certainly. We've had two opportunities in DC, and this is a DC issue. Two opportunities in DC to create these pathways to citizenship, and both times the opposing party, not in power, put the block on it. This needs to get done. I don't think there's a better opportunity than this summer when Republicans control the House, Senate, and the presidency, and the Democrats have seemed to want this for a long time. That has to happen in D.C. And if it doesn't, there's plenty not happening in D.C. with each party pointing at the other. But we have dreamers who've been here for 30 years with no pathway to citizenship. This needs to change, both for the workforce, for the individuals, but tied to that, the sanctuary aspect of not complying with federal law enforcement needs to be dismantled at once. You don't want ICE in neighborhoods chasing people? Get them as they come out of jail. Get them after they've been convicted of crimes. We want immigration reform that removes the criminals and provides a pathway. It needs DC. I think it can be done, but under this political environment, it's a challenge.
Yeah, and we'll end on that, and I'll just say this is why I'm increasingly less enamored with the two-party system, because the reality is both parties benefit from the system being broken, the immigration system being broken. When this happens, the right gets to whip up their base. And then when, ICE situations happen in Minnesota, the left gets to whip up their base. Both sides raise a bunch of money, get their voters out to the polls, putting up signs. I think right now the two-party system is disincentivizing our politicians from actually solving the problems. And Craig, you're right. Right now, Republicans, we don't have a 60 vote majority in the Senate, but we have majorities. We could put something forward and force Democrats in the Senate. All right, fine. Here you go. You going to step up or not? I would love to see that done. All right. If you think our emotional topics are done, yeah, we're not. That's why I said this episode's a doozy. Michael Altman, a firefighter, lost his life, but it's so much more than that. There's a part of this story that's just going to stick with me for forever. This Block Club Chicago story talking about how the funeral for this firefighter had to be postponed because his wife went into labor a week before this basically young man was going to have a baby girl. His wife was going to give birth to a baby girl. He lost his life in a fire set by somebody who never should have been still on the streets. Now you've got a wife who's a single mother. You've got a baby girl without a father. But just that idea, I don't know why. Sometimes those little things just stick. The funeral had to be postponed because she was in labor. She just lost her husband. I don't know how you get through that. This was a situation. Sheaves Slate was the individual's name who started the fire, who had a rap sheet incredibly long. This is somebody who's been,
since July, it said.
Yeah, arrested for retail theft, drug possession, had an active warrant at the time of this fire, had a long history. We don't have time to go through everything, but a long history of interactions with law enforcement, with the legal system. He had accidentally set fires before at multiple homeless camps, and had been caught doing so. There's a long history here that tells you that this individual was going to do this. Well, he sets a fire to the building. Firefighters are trying to manage that fire, and here we go. A 32-year-old firefighter who was about to be a dad of a little baby girl is gone. This is the stuff we're talking about, that this agenda, there's no other way to word it, this pro-criminal agenda, whether it's Kim Foxx, Brandon Johnson, even JB Pritzker, we've seen it down in Springfield. There needs to be much, much, much more balance. But right now in the state, the pendulum has swung way too far, to the point where we're actively trying to empty the jails and put individuals back on the streets. And this is what happens. Innocent people are paying the price. And I don't understand why in our politics we can only have two extremes: lock everybody up or lock nobody up. This is where the average normal human being says, isn't there a giant gulf between the two? Isn't there some lane here for common sense that says, yeah, we don't want to put everybody in jail for sneezing on the street. But on the other hand, there are people who probably shouldn't be on the streets, because innocent people pay the price when you don't do your jobs and hold criminals accountable.
Right.
And here we go. This is an innocent individual.
How many people would this firefighter, this hero firefighter, have helped in the future? But he can't now.
Yeah.
And the training that went into, him being a firefighter.
Yeah. Anyways, that's the intro. Go ahead and jump in, guys, with your thoughts. I know everyone felt pretty strongly about this.
I mean, I think one of the biggest problems with the criminal justice system right now is that there is an ideology, it's a philosophy actually, where people aren't responsible for their actions because they're determined by their environment, they're determined by their mental status, they're determined by their economic well-being, that they are not responsible for any action they make. It's been determined for them by society. It's been determined for them by capitalism. It's been determined for them for whatever reason. And the problem with this mentality is at the end of the day, you come to the realization that nobody should be in jail if you believe this. So over time, you hear more and more of these stories where people have a rap sheet a mile long. And oftentimes their rap sheets are a mile long for, sure, minor things. Talked about retail theft, talked about some other minor crimes this individual may have committed. But the problem is that over time, all of these minor crimes add up into basically career criminals, and there's no solution for this in either direction. There is no solution where people are saying, hey, we need to start locking these people up in jail. But on the inverse, there's also not a side of this where they're like, this person clearly has some type of problem. Why don't we actually approach the problem from this direction?
And Chris, we've talked about previously how we can't make our jails these giant mental health centers, which is what many people on the Republican side have wanted for this individual. Clearly, this individual had massive mental health issues. So I'm not saying that he should have been locked up in jail and now you make this Tom Darts problem to try to rehab the individual. There's an alternative solution, but he should not have been on the streets. That is my point.
Right, and Dart's been talking about that for years, where they send these people go through the system. They have a rap sheet a mile long, and they should be in a mental health institution. And while we can't dig up Ronald Reagan to blame him for all the mental health institutions closing, what we can do is actually provide new solutions to the problem and say, like, you're mentally deficient for one reason or another. You need to be off the streets. You need a mental institution. You need to get help. You are a criminal. You did something wrong. You are going to jail. This is how this is supposed to work. This is the story of this episode at this point, is that people are on the streets who shouldn't be on the streets, okay? And for whatever reason, the government cannot get through their mind that there are actual solutions to these problems, and all they want to do is, the right just wants to talk about them, and the left just wants to ignore them.
Yeah. I mean, Republicans want to rush to talk about the Safety Act because that's what we do anytime there's a crime problem. And I've been screaming about this for years, that yes, the Safety Act does need changing. I'm going to talk about that here in a second. But we got to be talking about crime and the larger pro-criminal agenda, not just about one piece of legislation. Because every time we do that, we give the left an opening to say, well, what? You wanted to just lock people up because they didn't have money? I mean, the cash bail provision within the Safety Act polls incredibly well, and you let Democrats fall back on that every time you blame all of the crime problems on Illinois on the Safety Act. When the reality is, there was another story on the Safety Act just this week. One of the most respected state's attorneys in Illinois, Bob Berlin, came out because WGN had a story about an individual who was a repeat DUI suspect who had a car in the child this last time that they were busted for drunk driving, had a toddler in the car. And this was not the same time or the first time this individual had been caught driving under the influence. And yet, they couldn't lock him up. The judge couldn't lock him up because the Safety Act would not allow. And this is what I've been pointing to for a while now. Good people like Bob Berlin, who are not flaming partisans, who have said, you know what, we do need to make some common sense adjustments to the Safety Act because there's a misnomer out there. Ben Bradley from WGN posted this, and there was a good discussion on his Facebook wall. He's been initiating a lot of good discussions lately. I've enjoyed it. And somebody posted that the Safety Act is supposed to allow judges to decide whether someone who's been arrested for violent crimes is a danger to the community and should be held in jail. And I didn't, because I don't get in Facebook arguments anymore, but I wanted to jump in and said, no, it actually does the opposite, and that's the problem. Ask judges out there. Actually, the Safety Act has tied their hands and taken away their ability to hold someone like this who is a danger to others in jail. The burden of proof is on the prosecutors, which if you're in a county like Lake County, like Larry's, the prosecutors are Kim Fox acolytes and rarely want to hold people in jail. And so the burden of proof is on them, and the judges have no ability. It's what the law says from the law down in Springfield, and it's what the prosecutor puts in front of them, and that's it. They have no discretion here. And so a common sense reform to the Safety Act is let's trust our elected judges with a little bit of discretion when they see that an individual should be held for their crimes because they're a danger to others. This individual just proved after multiple DUIs and this last one with a toddler in the car that they should not be trusted out on the streets, especially not with the ability to have access to a toddler. But the judge had zero discretion to be able to do anything about that. These are the things we could actually get done down in Springfield, but instead we just scream about the Safety Act and we move on, and nothing ever gets done. Nothing gets improved. All right, let's move on. we're past our emotional topics, and now we can get into more of our policy and political topics. So if you made it this far, congratulations. If you made it this far without shedding a tear, you're not human. But if you've made it this far, congratulations. Let's get into a few topics, a few policy topics that have been in the news recently. Let's talk about property taxes. Let's talk about taxes. And let's talk about the war that JB Pritzker seems to be actively fomenting here with local governments. I've never seen something like this, but it's been over and over and over this year, and previous years too, but especially this year. I don't know what polling JB Pritzker has that says go to war with your municipal leaders, your county leaders, your township leaders, but it's not by accident. And yet again, it's coming out. So let me digress here. The Chicago Treasurer Maria Pappas came out with a study about how Cook County property taxes have doubled the rate of inflation in the last 30 years. What she found is that taxing bodies within Cook County have increased their tax levies 182% since 95. There we go. While inflation was 91%, and our wages have only gone up 161%. We all agree there is absolutely a problem here with property taxes, and something needs to be done about it. And it's on every level of government. To be clear, it's not just on Pritzker. But of course, Pritzker does what Pritzker does, which is blame everybody else but himself. He's 7 years into I don't know what word I'm searching for, but he's been governor for 7 years, and he's yet to find anything that is his fault in 7 years. And this is another thing. And he came out just railing on local governments, on school districts, saying it was all their fault for this, ignoring the fact that he and his administration and Democrats in Springfield continue over and over to pass unfunded mandates that municipalities and school districts and others have to raise taxes to fund because the state's not helping them do it. But whatever, that doesn't fit Pritzker's narrative. So it's all the local government's fault. Again, I'm shocked to see him doing this in an election year, because some of the most beloved people are your mayors, your local school leaders. I mean, picking a fight with them in an election year seems super dumb to me, but I don't know. What do I know? I just do politics for a living. But anyway, so your thoughts on property taxes, on unfunded mandates, on Pritzker wanting to blame everyone but himself. Big topic. Take it any direction you want.
Well, let's be fair.
Go ahead, Larry.
I'm sorry, Craig. Let's be fair, though. I mean, there was one idea that Pritzker, I believe, fronted, which was to tax, millionaires. Right, and supposedly that was going to give some property tax relief, but it wouldn't be enough. And as we've seen, you take that approach, you take that ultra populist approach, like they're doing in Washington State and they've done in other states. It just drives the wealthy people away.
Well, so, actually, it's funny you mentioned that. I have that note for this topic, so I was prepared for you. Lane's going to bring up in post. There's a map from Realtor.com using IRS data that shows which states have gained and lost the most wealth post-pandemic. And Illinois, of course, no shocker, is the highest in the Midwest, third highest in the country. We've lost $6 billion in wealth, and that's before this potential millionaires tax. It's not my job to defend millionaires. Obviously, Larry's bringing up this point, and it's a point worth discussing. But yeah, this is part of the problem in Illinois is the people with means are leaving, and the rest of us are stuck here paying the property taxes and paying the bill. So it's certainly something to keep in consideration. But here's what I have to say this. I'm sorry. That's what killed me. So Shia put this in her daily Politico thing, and here's how she worded this LaShawn Ford bill, which is HJRCA 26. Literally, she worded it as, it's a constitutional amendment to generate $4.5 billion in property tax relief for struggling Illinois homeowners and businesses. That's it. Not a millionaire's tax. Didn't mention that it was a tax or anything like that. Literally just, I try to defend the media. I do, because I don't think all of them are crazy far left like some people on our team seem to think. But when they do stuff like this, it really gets hard to defend them, because you just copy pasted the talking points from the left on this and completely buried the headline, which it is a tax. Like I'm sorry.
Yeah, where's the money coming from? She just decided to leave that part out.
No, it's just a property tax relief amendment. That's all it is. Like, listen, I just show both sides. Just be fair on the damn thing. Anyway, sorry. I had to vent on that. But Larry's right. This is the one solution that the left has proposed, is a millionaire's tax, which is why you can imagine it's going to be something we're going to see on the ballots. There's no way they're going to be talking about it and not put it on our ballots in November.
Well, this is not new. I think the Democrats have always treated, business owners in particular as piggy banks, right? And yes, Illinois is a great state. Boy, we got a lot going for us. But the idea that it's such a privilege to be here and to operate your business here means you can abuse these businesses and take as much as you can possibly get away with. People have a choice. I mean, how many major businesses have we lost from Citadel on, right? That could have contributed greatly to the state, and now they're not here anymore.
Craig was trying to jump in earlier. Go ahead, Craig.
Yeah. So there's only one core that drives this, and it starts with the insatiable appetite for spending other people's money in government. Look at the $18 billion growth in the budget in 8 years, and then acknowledge that it's not all the current governor's fault, right? The theft of LGDF funding from municipalities started in 2011 with the income tax increase and has continued on. I'm actually surprised that the governor hasn't said, wow, 2 point couple billion in LGDF. I already collect it. I'll just not distribute it, and I'll give the municipalities the opportunity to create their own income tax. That was the deal, right? No local income tax. They're going to get 10% of what the state collects. Nope, we're at 6 point something percent now. And it legitimately, that drives property tax increases. Let's talk about education, right? Wasn't JB that stole the lottery money for education by using the lottery money for education and removing the additional education funding out in a swap? He didn't do that, but it's promulgated. He is, for 7 and going on 8 years, not funding education to the state constitution requirement of being the majority funder. That drives property taxes. Collin's already meant it, right? Unfunded mandates. We don't do fiscal notes anymore in Springfield. There's no acknowledgement of what a bill might cost or who it might cost anything. And then, the governor, hey, great political gain, cancel the sales tax on groceries. Well, had to cut a deal, let the municipalities add it. That's easy enough. Makes them the bad person. I cut it. Didn't backfill them, didn't address it. This governor absolutely holds responsibility for a significant portion of the property tax increases in the past 8 years. But it's the structure of allowing so much to be funded at the local property tax level and thinking that Illinois can put its hands up saying, we don't address property taxes. Yeah. Baloney. Yeah, every bill you pass down there impacts what the local and other taxing authorities need to do. So it is a statewide issue, and there is no discussion. But the fact now that Illinois business climate has tanked the business environment in Chicago, the wealth of the buildings, right? We've had major buildings sell at 1/8 or 1/10 of once their value. Well, guess what that hits? That's now hitting the residents of Cook County. And, I've always hated the difference in assessment structure in Cook County versus the rest. 1/3, 1/10. It just seems off how the assessor does the evaluations. We need a statewide.
Well, we're going to have a new one. We'll see.
Going to have a new one. Who are they going to focus on? But the reality is, maybe it's a good thing that the lack of a business climate, the attacks on business, the vacancies in Chicago, it's only going to impact the residents. And maybe it's a good thing that we're going to have 12.8 million people now all agreeing that property taxes are a problem. Maybe it'll force a vital discussion and maybe some changes, but not without making some difficult decisions and trade-offs.
Well, and Craig, you mentioned unfunded mandates. We've got a great example from this last week. What you guys got to understand in our audience is these aren't nefarious things that Springfield does and say, oh, we want to, cause. Many of these bills they pass sound great. This is a bill I'm going to talk about here that sounds like something, as somebody who wants to see improvements in education and further investments in education. That's a big passion of mine. This bill sounds great, but I know the back end here that it's another unfunded mandate. Let's talk about House Bill 4416, the Unemployment Equity Act. which, is very creatively worded here, which just passed the House Labor and Commerce Committee. And it clearly is a big focus for unions in the state who are pushing it as part of their main agenda for this year. And the basic premise behind it is that for some of the workers in schools who are not educated related, so lunchroom workers, classroom assistants, bus drivers, security guards, janitors, etc., they're in those supportive roles. This would allow them to take unemployment over the summer when they're not being paid to work at the school district. You can word this in 100 different ways, all of which sound really good. Like I do want those individuals to be able to pay their bills. Okay, yeah, maybe let's talk about this idea. But here, when you read the bill and look at it, here's where the problem lies. There's no funding source for this. So it's another unfunded mandate on school districts and on whoever else is going to be touched by this. I don't know if this hits community colleges or other units of government. I didn't get that far in the bill because there's a lot there to read. I'm counting on people like Craig to do the digging and their staff to do the digging because I don't get paid for it. But the reality is there isn't a funding source tied to this. So it sounds great. And I certainly respect the unions wanting to advocate for their employees. But the reality is this is why our property taxes keep going up. Could you pass a bill like this that sounds awesome? What's the school district going to have to do? The money will have to come from somewhere. So does this get paid by the unemployment system, by businesses? Does it only get paid by the schools who pay half of that unemployment when people go on unemployment currently from the schools? That hasn't been defined, of course, because as Craig said, we don't ever do the fiscal notes or do the research on how stuff gets paid for. But this is why property taxes go up, because the school districts, they are required to follow the law. So this gets passed. School districts will have to comply. That money will have to come from somewhere. Their only funding source is property taxes. So they will have to raise property taxes further in order to pay this. This is exactly what we're talking about, is if you want to see property taxes go down, you've got to stop putting these unfunded mandates on local schools, local community colleges, local municipalities, townships, libraries, park districts, because their only funding source in many cases, especially for non-home rule communities, are property taxes. They have no choice. So this is on everybody. And yes, it's on Pritzker, who signs a lot of these bills. It's on Springfield, who passes a lot of these bills. You cannot pass the buck and say it's all the local government's fault, because in many cases, it's actually you, Springfield politicians, the good ones not counted, of course, like Craig. It's you, JB Pritzker, who signs these bills, who are leading to these direct increases in property taxes.
Well, I'm not sure how anybody can even work in the dog days of August, right? When the heat is over 80 degrees, apparently you got to stop work or something. Right. Yeah. I mean, what are we going to do when it gets really hot out?
Well, there's the bill for that too. Right now, they're not even allowed to work. But anyways, so this is the kind of thing where the thought needs to be put into what does it actually cost? And let's actually get a little bit creative here with the way we approach things. Because if you just want to pass a bill, as Chris said earlier, so you could put out a good press release and pat yourself on the back and put something on a mail piece and say, look, we did something. We helped our local schools, when actually you hurt your local schools, just like eliminating the grocery tax hurt local residents and hurt local communities. Let's actually do the right thing and pass bills that help people instead of just looking for your next press release and TV ad.
Hey, how many flyers do we get in the mail around election time who claim X candidate is the tax cutter, right? What taxes have ever been cut in Illinois? It just baffles me every time I see that.
Yeah. Maybe let's respect local control. I mean, I can tell you the number of mayors, county leaders, local leaders who are absolutely livid right now for the number of things that are being pushed down in Springfield to remove local control, whether it comes to zoning issues, when it comes to housing and how it's built and what you can and cannot do. There's bills each week that keep popping up that continue to take away local control. As Republicans, we stand for individual responsibility. Looks like I'm going to get swept away by that tornado after all. I'll be in Wizard of Oz too. Anyways, local control is being stripped away, and I think all of us agree that the more that you can have control locally, the more that we can have control in our own communities, it's a good thing. It's a better thing. So we should be standing for that and defending that.
So I'll just kind of throw it out there. Maybe now's the time to push for year-round school, right? We eliminate the need for all of these workers to go on unemployment. They'll have a year-round job. We'll eliminate student summer loss. We'll be able to have some extended breaks that maybe families can plan around a little bit more. Potential win-win to solve both without causing a significant increase in costs.
Just don't make
You
the
know,
teachers work when it hits 80 degrees, Craig.
Senator
Or under
Wilcox,
40.
Senator Wilcox apparently wants to take all the light out of young children's eyes when it gets time for summer break. You don't get that
get
anymore.
over it, Chris. You'll be fine.
Now,
I'll
Chris,
trade, I'll trade
remember,
you summer break
I
for
had
any
land,
daylight savings time.
yep, I had landmark school, and I'll tell you, those families actually enjoyed the year-round aspect. Their education was better. They have much longer breaks in between the 4 sections, easier to plan on. And I'm guessing Chris, as a kid, right? What parent hasn't heard a week into spring break, there's nothing to do? So,
Well, what I like is creative thinking from Craig. I'm going to just say that our side on this isn't blameless when it comes to this issue, because anytime there's an opportunity to be a little creative, it seems like people freak out. For instance, the Chicago Tribune put out a op-ed this week. Travis Weaver, and there's some others, so forgive me. I know there's a couple others pushing this, and I don't remember your names, so forgive me. I'm not overlooking you intentionally, but I remember Travis on this, are putting forward a bill that says maybe we shouldn't require a second year of foreign language education. Allow school districts some flexibility. If they want to do that, they can, but if they want to put those kids' time into something else that maybe is more valuable in that community, let them do it. Respect local control and reduce that unfunded mandate on school districts. And the Trib freaked out. The Trib, which wants lower property taxes, freaked out. If we're going to do this, we got to actually all get on the same page here that reducing unfunded mandates is a good thing. We also have to understand that there are creative solutions out there. I'm going to give Jed Davis some props later because I love Jed. He's one of my favorites, but I'm going to give him a little ding here on this, which is he's come out against data centers down in Yorkville after he opposed the referendum down in Yorkville because he said it was spending too much. Well, the data centers were going to have resulted in tens of millions of dollars for the local schools so that they wouldn't have to go pass a referendum that's too high, which actually was a point Jed made during that election. But then when the data centers came up, he was against the data centers. It's like, listen, I have problems with data centers, don't get me wrong, but you can't scream about how you want to see property taxes go down, and then here's a $68 million payment to the schools that would result in lower property taxes, and he opposed that too. Like, we've got to be consistent here if we want to lower property taxes. And you know what? We got to stop just screaming about it and sit down and actually do something about it. Can we get communities together to say, you know what do we actually need? Like, what do we actually need for our schools? We don't need this. We don't need that. We want this. We want that. Okay, let's agree to a plan. Let's agree to a tax structure. Like, let's actually address the problem instead of just screaming about it, because screaming about it is resulting in every year our property taxes going up. So maybe that ain't working. All right, now we're getting into our political topics. For a political show, it's an hour in and we're finally going to talk politics, but we got some doozies. Let's talk about the Republican Party. First, Chris has been itching to talk about this for a while, but the signs for Republicans in November are not looking good. You saw turnout during the Republican primary be over 2-1 Democrat over Republican. Chris did a whole bunch of work pulling together the turnout numbers in the Chicagoland area. Chris, I'm going to let you share that since you did all the work. So I'll give you a note that you can pull that up, and you can share it in a second how bad those numbers were, because they were significantly up for Democrats and significantly down for Republicans compared to 4 years ago. I was going to steal your hard work and take credit for it, but I'll be nice today. We also have the special election in Florida that recently happened. And by the way, we have clients down there because we work all across the country. Clients who live in that district, so we know firsthand exactly what happened. And what happened is exactly what happened in Texas. It's exactly what's happening around the country, which is Republicans are actually showing up, but voting Democrat in these states that have open primaries or special elections. That's a serious problem for Republicans. And as Chris has said repeatedly in recent months, Trump's approval is at record lows, whether it's the Iran war, whether it's frustrations over the economy or anything else. You can disagree with why or how or what or whether it should even be true, but the numbers are the numbers. His approval numbers are very, very low. All of these things come together to say right now, April 2nd, as we record this, things are not looking great for Republicans in November if we don't make a serious change. Chris, why don't you share some of those turnout numbers before we let people jump in with their thoughts?
No problem, Collin. Thank you for giving me a heads up because I did not have this pulled up. I thought you were talking about it. So as a quick caveat, some of these numbers are total votes, not ballots cast, because certain counties, page, aren't very helpful with certain.
Good thing they replaced their clerk.
Yeah, so maybe things will change, but it's going to be another Democrat probably, so who knows what's going to happen over there. But some simple numbers to think about. Let's start city of Chicago. In the city of Chicago, Democratic primary turnout was up 30.49% compared to 2022. GOP turnout was down almost 31%. Now, that's the city of Chicago, you might say. There aren't no Republicans in the city of Chicago. And I say, okay, let's look at some more egregious examples then. Let's go over to Blue Page County. Democratic turnout this year in terms of total votes was up 52.38% from 2022, whereas GOP turnout was down 31.56%. So that was a gap of over 50,000 votes between the Democratic primary and the Republican primary this year in DuPage County. The most significant increase, Kane County. Kane County Democratic turnout was up almost 71% from 2022. GOP turnout, honestly, in terms of the rest of these areas, was only down 26%. So Kane County,
only 100% difference between the two.
Yeah, only 100%.
We keep getting people who tell us we're crazy because we say McHenry County is trending in the wrong direction. Can you give the McHenry County numbers as further proof we're not lying?
The McHenry County numbers. So this is the one. And Craig, you might want to close your ears here. Actually, you should probably open them because this is going to affect you in November, my friend. So listen to this. So McHenry County, Democratic turnout was up 69.76% compared to 2022. GOP turnout was down over 48%. It was basically flipped. GOP turnout was about 29,000 in 22. Dem turnout was 24, almost 25,000 in 26. And Dem turnout in 22 was 14,500. GOP turnout was just over 15,000. McHenry County basically flipped itself in terms of turnout. Now, the caveat could be said, there was basically nothing to vote for on the Republican ballot.
I mean, except for a governor's race, but yes.
Come on. I'll fire back, Chris, right? Okay. Democrats, they didn't turn out to put JB down on the ballot to run again, right? They had U.S. Senate seat that they presume will be theirs in November, that they had a heck of a race for. They had congressional races in all of the districts touching McHenry County except the 10th in LaHood. No doubt they came out. But if you look at the overall numbers, from 2018 to 2024, primary Dems, I see numbers that are well below the increase that you talked about.
And well, we're talking about 2026 here.
Don't forget, 75+% of the votes come in the general aren't primary voters. Right.
But this is a sign of how enthusiastic both sides are at this point in the election season.
Right. And this I think is a solid point, Chris, that you can say that Republicans were less enthused in the primary because we were less enthused about our choices. But guess what? Those are now our choices for November because y'all didn't show up. So if you weren't enthused in March to show up because of Darren Bailey, how are you going to be enthused in November to show up because of Darren Bailey? Craig, I get it, and I'm going to obviously let you talk because it's only fair that you finish your point. But what I want to make clear here is, yes, there are excuses we could make, but this isn't the only sign. We've been seeing signs all year of major problems for Republicans. And yes, there are caveats. That is fair. But if this is not one thing, one little stat in an ocean full of great stats for Republicans.
No, and I'm not disagreeing with that. And I won't say that it was lack of enthusiasm for Darren or for Ted or for Mendrick. The presumption was the race had been won long ago. So it was a lack of feeling like there was actually a need. So I don't think it's a lack of enthusiasm there, but there really were no truly competitive races or talked about competitive races for 3 months prior to the primary. So that's the counter. Now,
but the reality is,
hold on, Craig, let's let Craig finish.
Right. 75% of the voters in November didn't vote in the primary. We know that independents are very unlikely to be pulling a Republican or a Democrat primary unless they have a vested interest in a contentious race where they really want to have an impact there. You know, is it time, and this isn't fixing it for November, but I've been a proponent for this for a while. We should have a single primary ballot. put the Republican candidates, Democrat candidates, the independents, the Greens.
That I agree
Let
with.
independents come for the primary. The fact that we are picking our candidates, and when you tie that to the gerrymander nature, right? We are picking our elected officials with sometimes as little as 6 to 8% of the overall voters having that say because of the structure we have here. And, that needs to be something that we look at, longer term. But for now, sure, is enthusiasm appear one-sided? Absolutely. I don't think that's going to hold all the way through to November.
Well, it can't. I mean, at this point, this is the challenge, and we didn't time this for Craig to be here for this conversation, but sometimes providence works out. The reality is the Republicans in the Senate right now have three major races, major holds that they're looking at that are the front line. But if these numbers carry, you've got people like Erica Harris who should never be in trouble. You've got people like Craig Wilcox who should never be in trouble, who are suddenly in a fight for their lives if these numbers hold. So this is why we're raising the warning flag here for Republicans is in a state where it's not so overwhelmingly blue, yet Republicans are already in the super minority. We're playing hard defense already, and that's only going to increase if we don't turn this around. We have got to turn this around, and the clock is ticking. If you don't hear the tick, 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 tick like Interstellar in the back of your mind, you're crazy. If we don't turn this around, it's scary.
So I think you're right to raise the alarm bell, Collin. Absolutely. I'm not ready to despair yet. I think there's a couple important points. Number one, looking at the money, you numbers guys should bring up how much the Democrats spent versus Republicans to get their voters out in the primary. And that's not to say they're not going to outspend us in the fall.
The ratio will be the same.
Well, it might be. It might be.
I mean, so $5 million was spent on the Republican race for governor. Do you think Darren Bailey is going to raise and spend $5 million in this race? Not even close.
No, but I think
not even close.
I would say that you look at some of these competitive state rep races, like a Kevin Schmidt or Erica Harris, like money is going to be spent there. It's not going to be, a 20-1, disparity. I get what you're saying. Yeah, we're going to be outspent. We're always outspent. But you look at the number of contested congressional primaries the Democrats had in districts where it was a foregone conclusion that whoever won on the Democratic side would be the nominee. They're driving the turnout.
So what? So we put.
Well, how many primaries did I have on my ballot? Like zero.
I grant your point, all of you. I grant your point. So this ain't a problem. Everything's fine.
No, it's not. Nobody's saying that, Collin. Nobody is saying that. And I think to shift a little bit, another part of the problem that I see is lack of what I call star power, right? And you can call that attractiveness of candidates or popularity of candidates. We don't have any stars anymore. We don't have any people that people go out and vote for and feel really good about it, right? And hopefully that will change to some degree. I hate being negative all the time, and this is going to be a race about how bad the Democrats are, and we've got to save our state and what's at stake. But by golly, I wish we just don't have anybody anymore that really, I think, lights a fire in a lot of the electorate on the Republican side.
Let me remind everybody that we test this once a quarter. We ask the voters, self-identify, are you conservative, moderate, or liberal? Our latest data from January says 38% moderate, 35% conservative, 27% liberal. Moderate has won 6 years. I've only been testing this for 6 years, and it's won for 6 years in a row. I'm sure it was longer than that. I just don't have the data. Conservative has been second almost every single time. This is still a center-right state, yet we're talking about potentially a blue tsunami in November. We've got to come to the realization that something ain't working. Vincent did a great piece in the Illinois about change or die, and this needs to be a message for the Republican Party. It is not working. Can we get the message here, or do you want to just roll off the cliff, popping popcorn, going, wee?
I think it's going to be easier for Republicans to moderate than Democrats because the Democrats have gone so far left. If you look at Juliana Stratton's platform going into the general election now, she's doubling down on everything. Right.
That is true.
It's a left-winger's dream agenda. And I think that's going to hopefully be easy to run against. I don't know how much of a chance we're going to have. given the headwinds. But I think that is going to be really easy to pick apart. But I got one of my Facebook reminders the other day about we had our Lake County Republican Federation Spring Gala 10 years ago, 12 years ago. Who did we have? We had Governor Rauner, we had the governor's spot, we had Senator Mark Kirk, we had Congressman Bob Dole. We had some pretty heavy hitters, and we had so much more representation. The smaller you get, it's a snowball factor where we don't have any friends, we have no star power, we have nothing to fight for at this point. And so we're back on our heels. There's no doubt about it.
Here's what my point has been for the last month now, that even with the problems that the Republican Party has in terms of number of people it has represented down in Springfield, the quality of its candidates, the amount of money it has, there is a factor, and this is something that Darren Bailey's people are somewhat kind of sort of right about, is that there is a factor where if the Republican Party is popular nationwide, if things are going good, and the Republican Party's base has enthusiasm behind it, you can offset some of those problems that we're talking about in terms of, we don't have, like Larry's saying, we don't have star power anymore, any of those things like that. But here's the thing right now. The Republican Party is terribly unpopular nationwide right now because we are at war in Iran. We have no plan for war in Iran. The price of oil is going up, going up, going up. That means the cost of goods are going up, going up, going up. And every time someone tries to bring it to national Republicans or the president of the United States, he always they write off. It's like, well, Iran's not going to have a nuclear weapon, so you're going to be safer. And if you care about your gas prices, well, they're going to go down at some point soon. You just got to trust me. And for the independent voter, for the true moderates that are the plurality of people in the state that Collin keeps talking about in our polling, the problem is they don't want to hear about whether or not Iran has a nuclear weapon or not. They don't care. National security doesn't poll well. Never has.
They should, but they don't.
No, that doesn't matter. Who cares? Who cares? But the voters do not care about whether or not Iran has a nuclear weapon. So we're going to stake the Republican, who just came out today, that apparently Trump wants to invest in defense spending and cut entitlements, and that's going to be what the Republicans' message is going into the midterms, that we're bumping up the military. That came out today. And this isn't going to work because John Q. Public on the street cares about the economy. He cares about how much take-home pay he's actually going to bring home and how much he's spending on his groceries, how much he's spending on his gas, how much he has to spend on his kids, all of those things. That's what John Q. Public cares about. And the Republican Party, for whatever reason right now, I don't know why, for whatever reason wants to talk about war with Iran, how it's going to be done in 2 weeks, guys, just wait and see, and we don't have a plan. And the American public is sick and tired of it, and if this keeps up, the Republican Party is going to get smoked in November, and it's going to have nothing to do, sure, have a little bit to do, but it's not going to have as much to do with candidate quality or whether or not we're getting outspent. It's going to be because the Republican Party is so deeply unpopular in the eyes of the median voter and has lost the mandate, has lost the coalition that brought Trump in office in 2024. And that's what Republicans need to be talking about right now, because right now it's looking like the National Republicans are losing House. They very well might lose the Senate, and it's going to trickle all the way down to the state of Illinois, where the Republican Party may not exist anymore because there's no competency in this state, and they're getting swept up in a blue tsunami nation.
Go ahead, Chris.
So, Chris, all you have done is validate that to the American people, a political party can slowly cut you, slowly bleed you, slowly steal your tax dollars, and you don't respond. But when someone acts in a grand fashion to fix a problem, you bust on them all the way around. I spent an entire military career in the Middle East, dealing with the Sunni Shia divide, dealing with the Twelvers, the radical Islamists, living for a year 10 minutes from those Iranian missiles that would have probably impacted within minutes of our alarms going off. Rockets and mortars every day. Supporting a hospital that every day had American citizens there with dismembered body parts, brain injuries from what? Explosively formed projectiles, milled in Iran, smuggled into Iraq to target American citizens. As long as you as a country only target American citizens 10 CIA agents there, 83 Marines there in an embassy, and you do it over a long period of time, American public will accept it. It's okay, despite the fact that your ideology is absolutely anti-American. But decide to act in a grand fashion and go fix it for the world, and you're beat up. We had gas prices this high under Biden, no wars. Inflation, horrible policies drove this as well. Is this long acting? I don't know. I can't tell you. But I absolutely support what we are doing to Iran. Now, Chris, the flip side, you make it American politics. As long as I only hit you with a small tax increase here today, only 1 million illegal immigrants this month, maybe only 500,000 the next month, maybe only one 18-year-old getting shot in the head, maybe only one child getting killed by their parents. That's small. It's a blood cut, tiny paper cut, spread over time. I can deal with it if that's what the left policies are. But man, you make a hard change in any of those, and if this is the retroaction, I'd rather see a grand plan to fix the issues that have been bugging us for decades. What do we talk about? Property taxes, DCFS, law enforcement, crime back on the street, gang initiation. These aren't new in the past year or past 8 years, but they will take a big movement to go fix. I'll take the big movement in those repercussions long term so that my kids have a better America from what we remembered.
And let me make a solid point here, Chris, and I'm going to cowboy this, so forgive me, because I know you respect the senator's military career, and I know that was not the point you were making. But let me just say this. What we've said repeatedly is many times with the Trump administration, it isn't necessarily their actions, though this is an action we could debate for hours. It's how they've done it. I had to, I don't want to give too much because I don't want to give her away, but a young woman who I know, who I just saw yesterday, who I've known since high school, who has been one of the biggest Trump fans that I've ever known. Like, a little bit weird how much of a fan she was. And she was just railing on the Iran war, even though she was a huge Trump fan previously. And it came down to how. She didn't know a lot of what Craig said. To her, it was just how it impacted her and the fiscal impact. And so yet again, we've got a situation where how the Trump administration has done something, whether it's tariffs or this, is the problem. And again, you could debate the what, but the how, everyone agrees, could have been done better. But I want to bring us back to the original point, because as we talk about the challenges facing Republicans, the how matters. And the how is that Republicans are feeling the pain, Democrats are feeling the pain, independents are feeling the pain, everyone's feeling the pain of this. And they don't know the full story because the Trump White House has done a horrible job telling that story. And we're all going to pay the price in November. And what is the Republican Party focused on instead in Illinois? The race for State Central Committee. I mean, that's what I've gotten 3 texts about that just while we've been recording. That's what everybody's focused on April 15th. The county conventions are going to happen. We're going to pick our county leaders. We're going to elect our State Central Committee members, and then they're going to elect who's going to be the chairman. There are at least 2, if not 3 individuals angling to become the Republican Party chairman. That's what we're all focused on, when in reality, we're putting our heads in the sand to this giant tsunami coming at us in November. And so it's about getting our priorities straight, because ultimately this is not headed anywhere good for Republicans. And we'll close on this. But if anybody wants to talk about the Central Committee battles, this is your last chance to do it, because we won't be coming back to a similar topic. So in 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks, those fights will be happening at the county conventions. So if you want to share any thoughts on the Central Committee races or the upcoming state party chair race, here's your shot. Everybody, obviously, we'll talk about it, I'm sure, a lot next week after. The reality is people should be paying attention to that. If you're a Republican, you should be paying attention to these Central Committee races, because they're going to have a big impact on who leads this party. There are several individuals who've been angling for a while now, trying to get their people in at the precinct level, at the township level, at the county level, so that they could take over the party at the state level. You got to be paying attention to that, because some people are doing it maybe not for the party's benefit, but for their own personal ambitions. I'll just say that. And that's only going to take our party even further down this path of losing elections in Illinois.
I will say this. I've tried to stay as far away from the State Central Committee as I possibly could, and that has not changed.
No.
I want nothing to do with it.
Yeah. All right, let's go to what I think is our last political topic because we're starting to run out of time. Let's talk about the governor's race. So I want to ask you guys, who is the real Darren Bailey? I can't figure it out because you've got this Hillary Clinton style rebrand going on with the new glasses, the new hairdo, even some new clothes. And every once in a while he says some good things that I'm like, okay, cool. This is a serious candidate for governor. He came out on election night and since saying, I'm not Bruce Rauner. I'm not coming for your pension. Not only was it good positioning on an issue, but it was a great way to sort of distance yourself from a previous unpopular Republican governor. I thought that was really well done. There was another social media post they pushed out that said, Bailey, I'm going to be an 80-20 governor focused on what most Illinoisans already agree on: lower property taxes, better schools, safer communities. I was like, all right, great, do that. But then that's not actually what he's doing, because the vast majority of the campaign right now is running hard right on immigration, calls that he's going to he's going to get rid of the Trust Act on day one. He's going to end the sanctuary status on day one. He's going to repeal the safety acts, deport all the illegals. It's a hard right on immigration. And even his allies who I've spoken to over the last few weeks have been like, where's this new and improved Darren Bailey we were told about? It almost seems like whoever has the keys to the social media account at that moment either is following the memo that we're doing something different this time, or not following the memo. Because I'm honestly getting whiplash for which Darren Bailey we're going to get at any given moment. So which one's the real one? I can't follow. What do you guys think?
Well, and one of the things that surprised me, I mean, obviously you want, some national attention, and I understand it, and you're going to take what you can get. But like doing an interview with Laura Trump about immigration, like probably wasn't the best idea. I mean, there's other people on Fox that he could have, probably done that interview with that wouldn't have, caused us some issues. But I feel like there's, potential for that to be a problem down the line.
Yeah,
Like Brett Baer, like why? I mean, you just get interviewed by Brett Baer. You talk about immigration, like he's pretty, standard, like palatable. I feel like even, most people respect him, even people that aren't Republicans, and that would have been fine. But being interviewed by Trump's daughter-in-law about immigration, probably not the best for us.
Yeah, well, and especially the immigration issue. I understand that the Sheridan Gorman tragedy was news and you got to get attention. So I'm not saying you shouldn't talk about the issue and ride the wave of the news, but you also got to be aware of your positioning, because right now Hispanic voters, who have been one of the most gettable voting blocks for Republicans the last decade, even though we have mostly refused to do it for some reason as a party, over the last year have been trending away from us because, especially in the Chicagoland area, they're not happy with Trump sending ICE in. They're not happy with the troops. They're not happy right now. And I'm seeing over and over in polls, Hispanics going against Republicans bigly because of it. And so then Bailey's taking that same exact path. I mean, there was a poll done by a Democratic pollster. I will certainly say that, but these numbers are mirroring what I've seen in private polls, not allowed to release, but this one was a public poll. I'm going to have Lane bring it up in post. But Chicagoland feelings about ICE. Negative by over 2-1 margin. You've got in the Chicagoland area, here we go, in the graph that Lane's going to bring up. ICE favorability is 31 positive, 63 negative. Sure, of course, it's down with Dems, it's up with Republicans, but look at those numbers with independents. 28% positive and 62% negative. Look at those suburban numbers. Like 32% positive, 62 negative in suburban areas. I mean, these are not good numbers for us. Somebody mentioned earlier, Craig mentioned earlier, the need for a path to citizenship when it comes to immigration. Voters overwhelmingly support that, 83-13, including independents, 80-14 support this. This idea that you're going to run hardline right on immigration in a general election is a losing strategy. And here we are, this new and improved Darren Bailey, who's going to focus on the 80-20 issues, who's actually focusing on the 20-80 issues right now. So tell me how we have a winning strategy by our governor candidate right now, because this is not going to work.
I think you're paying entirely too much attention, Collin, to any of this because the voters aren't so far. So let's wait and see what happens in September after Labor Day.
Yeah, just put our heads in the sand. That'll fix everything.
Yeah, well,
the problem is I understand what you're saying, Larry, and that's true. But like the internet is forever, right? And I'm sure Pritzker is getting every soundbite and every quote that he possibly can so we can put it on a mailer in 6 months. Well, honestly, he probably won't even send out a mailer because he's like, why bother? I'm going to beat Darren by 15 points.
But it's
Well,
not
like I
even
said
that.
before, I think it's going to be.
It's how many Hispanic voters are seeing this right now. That's the question. Because, yeah, you're right. People aren't paying attention to the election itself, but they already know the name Darren Bailey. They already have negative feelings towards the name Darren Bailey. Then they see this. It's going to further cement those negative feelings. So while you are correct that the vast majority of voters pay attention after Independence Day and especially after Labor Day, your name recognition, especially your negative name recognition, can get locked early. And that is Bailey's problem, is right now his name recognition in a general election is all negative. So all he's doing is reinforcing that, and he's not going to have the money in September to turn that around.
The only ray of hope I have at this point is, like I said before, they're gonna be running harder to the left than anybody is to the right. I mean, as amazing as that may sound, I'm convinced that's going to be the case because that's what their base wants. So we'll see.
Okay, well, I guess I cross my fingers like everybody else. Meanwhile, Pritzker continues to show how vulnerable he is. His message this election on fiscal issues: since I became governor, we've turned Illinois around. Tell me any person in the real world out there who agrees with that. 10 credit upgrades, never mind that we still have the lowest credit rating in the country. 7 balanced budgets, which Craig will tell us were not actually balanced, they just borrowed on the future. And here's the kicker, all while providing tax relief to working families. What tax relief? Tell me what tax relief, because the only one they can point to, and they use it over and over and over, is the grocery tax. That's it. That is the only tax relief that he points to, is the grocery tax, which we all know didn't actually lower anybody's taxes because, 80% of Illinoisans live in communities where they're still paying that grocery tax. So nobody's actually benefiting from this supposed tax relief that he's delivered for working families. His message, his platform is incredibly beatable because you can prove how he's lying. Meanwhile, he's focused nationally. He's out gallivanting the country. What was over the last week? Last 2 weeks, he was in multiple states, not Illinois, campaigning. He's helping lead the resistance nationwide.
Is that really being 100% focused?
Here's, hold on, let me finish. He's finished.
I just want to ask that.
1 second. He's putting together Project 2029. That's his big focus now, is building their agenda for 2029. I mean, JB is not focused on Illinois. His agenda doesn't work in Illinois. People are not happy in this state. I've got a dozen polls in the last month that prove it. They want an alternative. We could beat Pritzker, and we are wasting an opportunity.
So how do we leverage the fact that JB says, I'm 100% focused on the people of Illinois, the idea of being president not on my mind? Clearly that's not true. How do we leverage that?
I mean, you go ask, here's the cool thing. Facts end up mattering at the end of the day. Go walk the streets and ask somebody, is JB running for president? Of course he is. Nobody believes the spin that he's putting out there. We don't have to prove it. Everybody already believes it.
Yeah, great. But how can we leverage that politically? He's saying one thing, but he's clearly doing another. Does that count for nothing anymore?
JB, have a real governor candidate who could actually put out a narrative with funding that gets in front of voters that shows how JB's a liar and a hypocrite. And here's why. And he's not making your life better, but I will. And here's how I'm going to do it. I've got a positive vision for where we can take this state. This is why we wanted a good governor candidate to win the primary. And this is why I'm screaming and begging for Darren Bailey to be that candidate, because we're stuck with him as the Republican nominee. So get your act together, because Pritzker is vulnerable. All right.
Now, not to contradict Collin, he did
go for it. Come on, everybody likes it.
He did allow for the gas tax inflation to not take effect for 6 months too. So there's 2 tax reliefs that I think we can give him.
The gas tax that he raised,
right?
Yeah. The one he raised,
55 increases and 2 reliefs.
Craig heard that Larry was the king of snark, and so Craig came in and tried to steal that mantle. Well played. All right, we've got a lot of news you can use this week. I certainly would love anybody's thoughts for these topics, but we're going to go through this pretty quickly because I want to hear your clowns and OGs, and I want to hear your final thoughts before we have to close this down. So let's go through it. First thing here. Residents are leaving Illinois at the 3rd highest rate in the country. Lane's going to bring up a map on post of the metro areas in the state who have lost residents to other states. And you can see the Chicago metro area had big losses. Champaign-Urbana, Bloomington, Peoria, big losses. Even Decatur and Springfield had some losses. There were 3 metro areas that gained like 7 residents each. I'm being facetious. But overall, even the IRS has backed this up in their data that they've put out. The number of residents that we are losing and the tax base that they're taking with them. Here's the killer that I saw. The average income of people leaving Illinois, 104,000. The average income of those moving in, 79,000. You're seeing this impact that people with means are leaving, and that what's left is the rest of us who don't have the ability to pay these high taxes and these high bills, but we're the only one left who can fit the bill. Going to the next one. Another visual that Lane will bring up on screen, the median property taxes in Illinois are the highest in the Midwest and the 6th highest in the country, as you'll see on this map. Now, remember, this is median. If you look at total property taxes, we are first in the country, but this is a different stat that's tested here, and even the median property taxes were the highest in the Midwest. All right, going to the next one. Illinois keeps
the hits
losing
keep coming, Collin. I mean, I don't know what to say at this point.
Going to the next one. You gave me a chance to puff my cigar, so thanks, Larry. Going to the next one here. So we all have mixed feelings. Many of us have mixed feelings on data centers, and I'm certainly not the biggest fan, as I've aired on these episodes. But JB Pritzker is all in on data centers with the massive tax breaks that he has given to data centers. Over $1.2 million per job created in tax benefits for these data centers. And there was a time not that long ago where Illinois was number 2 in the country on data centers. Then we dropped to 3rd, then 4th. Currently, I believe we're 5th or 6th. Well, this study has looked at how many data centers are under construction per state. And as of March 2026, Illinois has 19, which is 9th now in the country. We're even behind Indiana at this point. And if you are a loyal viewer or listener of this show, you know how much it eats at my soul that we lose to Indiana in anything. And here's another stat.
Well, and with a 2-year moratorium from the governor, we likely will drop probably into the 20s.
And imagine a world where adults were calling the shots in Illinois, where we just said, you know what, let's put in common sense restrictions so that data centers can come in here and they don't use up all of our natural resources and raise water rates and energy rates for local working families. Let's just put a common sense solution in place. We'd be good. But we went all in, screwing over working families to get to 2nd in the country. And now we're all out, so we're dropping way back in the country. It is this governing by extremes or governing by press releases and press conferences that is killing this state. It's driving me crazy.
It's lack of understanding, present company excluded, Craig, of legislators in general about how business operates, right? Because what businesses hate the most is uncertainty. You keep changing the rules while you're trying to build something or while you're talking about building a project. Why would you do that? You're going to go somewhere where it's a more certain business environment because you can assess the risks.
Yep. So we talked about this earlier. Let's talk about it now. This is something that drives me crazy. Now, I can't go too much into this because it was in a Capital Facts subscriber-only email, so I'm going to be very careful here. But at an ag event recently, JB Pritzker was asked, will you do a moratorium on the gas tax increase? Will you pause that or give people temporary relief since gas prices are so high? And JB Pritzker said, no, we can't do that. That's important money for the road fund. This is the same governor who just took a whole bunch of money out of the road fund to bail out Brandon Johnson's CTA. But when it comes to actually helping working families, no, we can't do that. Now, here's the political reality. He knows and believes that bad gas prices hurt Republicans right now and hurt Trump. Of course, he's going to do nothing to help working families in the state because every time they go up, he's not taking the blame. Trump is and Republicans are. So I understand the political realities. But here we go. Here's a chance to help working families. You were okay going in the road fund temporarily or permanently to help out CTA and help out Brandon Johnson, but you're not okay doing it to help the working families who are struggling. It yet again shows where Pritzker's motivations are. They're on his run for president. They're not on helping the working families of Illinois. Going to the next one here. So this one I added late to the agenda because the governor put out a press release 3, 4, 5 weeks ago about CSL coming in, and they're going to invest $1.5 billion in Illinois. They're going to create 300 new full-time jobs. It sounded awesome. But what they had in there was the official EDGE agreement or whatever it's called, agreement that we have with the state is not finalized yet. So I made a note to check once a week to see when it was finally posted. And it was finally posted, so I finally have numbers. A $60.6 million credit in order to create these 300 jobs. That's $202,000 in state taxpayer-funded benefits to this company in order to create 300 jobs. Now, I'm all for creating jobs. We talk about it all the time in this podcast, but because the business environment in this state is so bad, we basically have to bribe businesses to come here, or in this case, mostly to stay here. And that is not a workable long-term solution in the state. Just like Mars Snacking. Big Pritzker got so much praise for it. Oh, isn't this amazing? They're going to increase their footprint, which I love. I love it. And I got a buddy who works there. I love it. But then you dig into the numbers. They're getting almost $43 million in tax credits for 602 new jobs. That's over $71,000 in benefits per job and tax breaks they're getting per job. We are in an unsustainable cycle here in Illinois. Of course, it should come as no surprise that Pritzker's giving massive giveaways this year in an election year, but nobody, of course, in the media is doing this work to do the digging and say, should we be giving $200,000 per created job here in order to create these jobs? I feel like there's a more cost-effective solution, which comes into let's make the environment better for all businesses, including the ones who aren't able to access these huge tax giveaways, like our small businesses, like our small to mid-sized manufacturers, like our family farmers. I think they could use a little help instead of screwing them over and then giving tens of millions of dollars to these big companies.
Well, other states do that too, but the question is, what kind of deals are they offering versus Illinois?
All right, next one here. CTA. The assault rates on the CTA have over doubled compared to other public transit agencies. There's a great write-up in the Chicago Tribune about this, where they've looked at the rate of assault on the CTA and compared them to other major transit agencies. And in Chicago, it's over double what these other agencies were. We were at, in 2024, 20.7 rider assaults per 100 million passenger miles, where the others range between 4 and 9.5. So well over double from many of these other transit agencies. So those people who keep telling us that crime's not a problem, that we should just all move on and don't look at it. Yeah, no, crime's actually still a problem, and these are real people getting assaulted. Maybe we should do something about it. Next one here. So there's a bill being pushed down in Springfield, as always, that sounds great because our home insurance rates are skyrocketing. Our auto insurance rates are skyrocketing. And so there's a solution being proposed by Democrats down in Springfield and some others that would give regulators the power to reject these rate hikes. And this is going to play well in November. It is, because it sounds great. But the reality is when you look at what this will actually do, this is like the caps that are put on local governments where because they don't know what's going to happen in 5 or 10 or 20 years, they have to raise to the max of what they're allowed every single year because they're not sure if there's going to be another pandemic or another recession or, God forbid, even worse. When you put in these caps, it has been proven to decrease competition and force the maximum increase every single year. And so it's a great sounding bill. A lot of people are going to run on this. A lot of Democrats are going to run on this, that they lowered your home and auto rates. But the reality of the legislation is most likely it's actually going to bake in permanent increases every single year because these companies are going to have no choice.
Well, insurers can't operate with a profit because they're for-profit entities in the state. Will they just not even offer insurance?
Yeah. Craig, go ahead.
Well, and that's the point. The fact that the insurance companies who will leave under this law won't happen prior to November, right? The law will be effective the following year, and then all of a sudden,
so gain today, pain tomorrow.
You're going to learn your insurer is disappearing and leaving Illinois.
And then what will Democrats do then? They'll blame these big, bad, mean businesses. How dare you? Instead of blaming their own bill that they passed and put into law. All right, moving along. We're almost done here. Despite the fact that biometric identification systems, mostly facial recognition software, was just recently used in multiple high-profile cases to catch criminals that we all agree should have been caught, Chicago Democrat wants to ban all law enforcement from being able to use any biometric identification systems. This is House Bill 5521. This is, I hope, not going to go anywhere, but this is what we see over and over down in Springfield. This is a gigantic sledgehammer to what they've identified as a scalpel kind of situation. I'm willing to have a conversation where there are maybe some situations where we don't want law enforcement to use this technology. Let's have that conversation. But this is, let's just outlaw it for all law enforcement. You don't get to use current technology, modern technology to go out and catch criminals. This is so Illinois Democrats. Moving along here. Senate Democrats are pushing forward some bills, Senate Bill 4040 and Senate Bill 3391. Daily Herald did a great write-up on this, going after charter schools. There are some state-run charter schools, and these bills would eliminate protections for those charter schools and make them run at the local level. The Illinois network of charter schools have been pointing to this and screaming about it, that these are removing protections that they've had for more than 30 years, removing their independent appeals process. This is what drives me crazy as somebody who I've taken a ton of flack from my right side, from Republicans, from conservatives, for the fact that I dare defend our schools and stand up for our teachers, and I've taken a bunch of flack for it. But then they do this, and I can't defend you on this, guys. Come on. Could we stop it? Could we stop this us versus them mentality in education and just focus on educating our kids and giving them the best possible leg up for their futures? Could we make it about the kids, please, and stop with these political and partisan fights, please? All right, let's go to some good, including something good done by our guest this week. I don't want to always talk about the bad, so let's talk about 8 good bills. Senate Republicans, Seth Lewis, Craig Wilcox, Dave Severson, have put forward some bills to help improve affordability in Illinois. We're talking about Seth Lewis's bill is Senate Bill 3786. We got Craig Wilcox on here, who's got Senate Bill 3792 and Senate Bill 137. Dave Severson's bill, I'm going to try to keep up here, Senate Bill 2763. And then I promised, I gave my buddy Jed a little grief before, so now I want to give him some praise. He's got 4 House bills. House Bill 1112, 4295, 4296, and 4386, all focus on increasing affordability and opportunities for people and improving our economy in this state. There are some good bills being proposed by Republicans, and I love to see that, some positive solutions. Craig, you want to give a plug for your good bills here?
Well, sure. I mean, there are plenty of good, positive solutions that show up in Republican bills. The challenge is, getting them incorporated to the point where I think in this press conference, we collectively said, look, don't pass our bill. Take the language, put it in your omnibus, call it your own, get it done. We don't care.
Selfless leadership.
So they're not massive changes. I think Senator Lewis's is a legacy tax credit. Thank you for being a business here. It's a legacy tax credit for length of employment here. Mine were no taxes on tips, match the federal, happy workforce, not with dollars coming out of the owner's hand, better work environment there, doubling the retailer discount for the really small businesses because of the cost of being honored to collect and remit sales tax on behalf of the state as a retailer. And, there's great ideas if we can get a chance to sit down and have that discussion. But, in these days, sometimes it's offer up a good idea, let someone else take advantage and go with it. And, will that be an impact in November? No. Will it be a positive change for Illinois moving forward? Possibly.
Let's hope we can get it done. All right. Last one here. Again, Lane will bring up a map of this and show this visual. This is good news here. Despite all of the problems that we've mentioned, Illinois still has some of the most resilient manufacturers in this country. Some of the biggest manufacturing zip codes are here in Illinois. People forget it. Our lawmakers, especially Pritzker and the majority Democrats, always seem to forget this, that some of the biggest drivers in our economy are our manufacturers. And if you look, despite all the problems that we face, the output, the percentage of the U.S. manufacturing export, which was 2.1 trillion in 2025, Illinois is the highest percentage of that in the entire Midwest, and we're the 5th highest in the country. Now, here's the scary thing. Look at Indiana just next to us. Indiana is catching up. So sick of losing to Indiana. So I'd love it if Pritzker and our lawmakers would get their acts together.
Policies. They're just way better.
But the reality is that despite the bad policies, our manufacturers are resilient and are doing what they can. Imagine what they could achieve if we could give them some support from our government. My goodness, imagine what our manufacturers could do.
Here.
All right, with that, we have some fun to close this down. OGs and clowns of the week. Who you guys got?
What's the OG again? Remind me.
Original gangster. Somebody. It's a millennial term. I know it's pretty young for you, Larry.
Wow, I'm a little old for that.
I mean, it's old. If you say that to a Gen Zer now, they'll be like, "What the heck is an OG?" I'm old to them, so whatever.
Collin, I'll give you a start, and it kind of follows on the fact that you even knew about those bills. The Senate Republicans have taken a hearty effort at doing podcasts, having news conferences, showing the positive nature of our bills, not expecting necessarily that that means they're going to get passed, but to Mark and just the Senate Republicans in general, highlighting that there are good ideas, there are legislators that are looking out for the best interests of Illinois, and then highlighting it in venues where you're going to see it, the public's going to see it. So I'll give them an OG for that aspect.
Nice.
I got an OG for we hated a little bit on DuPage and some of the other Collier counties earlier, but I want to give a shout out to my good friend Kevin Coyne, who is the newish chair of the Republican Party in DuPage, and he's been on fire on social media. He's very active, putting a lot of work into it. And I think as Lake County, where I live, goes to choose a new chair in a couple of weeks, they could do a lot worse than emulate what Kevin's doing out in DuPage.
Certainly, I will grant you this. Kevin's been on our podcast before, and he is working his butt off. We obviously want to see results from that work. But yeah, Kevin has been working extremely hard.
You got to give a clown of the week to Harry Benton, who apparently can't take the time to show up in Springfield, but he can frequent all the bars in his district and watch March Madness games. Because there was a picture of him circulating, just doing just that. Absurd. You also have to give a clown of the week to Brandon.
Hold on. Let Lane will bring up that photo. Lane, you got to go grab it because I didn't give it to you. But Lane will bring up that photo. And here's what we're gonna do, because Harry Benton hasn't shown up to work now in weeks. So until he shows up to work, he continues to be our permanent clown of the week. So let's make that until Harry Benton decides that the taxpayers who are paying him deserve to be represented. Harry Benton will be our clown of the week on this podcast. Maybe show up to work or get out of the seat. But kudos to the House Republicans for putting up the pressure, and kudos to Gabby Shanahan for going down to Springfield and basically doing the job, saying, fine, I'll do the job. I'll go to the meetings. I'll go to the committee meetings. It's a great play by Gabby and the House Republicans, and Harry is absolutely a clown for this.
I also have to give clown of the week to Brandon Johnson, because he's established a task force to explore paying out reparations to African Americans in Chicago. I guess he didn't realize that Illinois was a free state and we were on the right side of history in that battle. And also, this might be one that I'm stealing from Chris, but Mike Henry from the Orland Park area, he's been harassing elected officials for probably close to a decade now with nasty messages, death threats, threats against their family members, anonymous voicemails, and looks like he's going to prison. So enjoy your time there, because you sure deserve it.
But he's been
Chris,
arrested.
You want to piggyback on that?
Yeah, he's been arrested. He hasn't been tried yet. Larry the lawyer is going to keep me safe from the litigious people out there. He has been arrested and charged, not gone to jail yet. But again, if he is guilty of these crimes, and many people strongly suspect he is, good riddance, buddy. I'm sick of the robocalls, damn it.
People don't realize, like, daily, if not weekly robocalls that were just vile and absolutely awful for years. This, again, it needs to be proven in the court of law, but it's already been proven in common sense. The trail exists, and it's existed for a while. And it's about time, people be held responsible for this kind of crap.
For a very long time, you knew it was election season in Orland when the robocall started up. And I got sick and tired of them every week. Oh, did you hear about the new robocall? I was sick of it. I wanted to do my work, damn it.
What else you guys got?
So, Collin, I'll give you your clown, given the conditions that you're out there, right? Woodstock Willie, Old Man Winter, and Mother Nature, right? Woodstock Willie was correct. Early spring, it showed up. Old Man Winter's not willing to give in, making 2 or 3 different reappearances. And then the clown, Mother Nature. Come on, get these two in line and give us what we're all looking forward to.
Yeah, seriously. I was so desperate for a cigar, I basically sat outside in a thunderstorm just so I could do it.
All right, I got 4 clowns and 1 OG. First clown of the week is President Trump, who this week during a press conference said, we can't pay for daycare. We can't pay for Medicaid. We can't pay for Medicare because we're at war right now. And we can't pay for anything else because it's war. Listen, whatever you might think about the war, one thing that quote is, it's a TV ad for Democrats going into November. So really stupid there. Clown number 2, Pam Bondi. We're on pack watch for Pam Bondi. It couldn't have come soon enough. Pam Bondi's out as Attorney General. Pack watch. She's out. She did a terrible job, and glad she's gone. Thank you, President Trump, for that. So you get a prop there. The Chicago Tribune, my next clown of the week. During the reporting on firefighter Altman's death, they took the opportunity to bring up a bunch of old wounds from Altman's family in the fire department about 20 years ago. This was neither the time nor the place. If you were trying to bring up a story about, the death of a firefighter, there were other things to talk about of whatever his family was doing 20 years ago. So Chicago Tribune, clown of the week there. And my final clown of the week is the Chicago White Sox. What's going on here, folks? I was told this was going to be a better season. We're getting our ass kicked day in and day out. This is ridiculous.
Early.
We're 6 games into the season. I'll be there tomorrow. But, things got to start picking up because I knew we weren't going to be good this year, but I was hoping for a better product, maybe 70, 75 wins. That was an outside realm possibility. So, final clown of the week, the Chicago White Sox. Collin, do you have anything on that before I go to
at least Munetaka looks for real.
Yes, very, very.
Plus, he's got the coolest Munetaka Murakami. I want to get a jersey.
Southside Samurai. I'm with it. I'm with it. And my OG for the week is my dad. My dad is retiring this weekend.
Cool.
Big and Little Shoes in Mount Greenwood neighborhood of Chicago is closing after 60 years. Block Club wrote a nice article about my dad and the store closing down this week. It's going to be a loss for the community, for Mount Greenwood, for the 19th Ward, for the entire South Side. It seems like every politician on the southwest side of Chicago has gotten their kids shoes at my dad's store over the years. So it's going to be a loss for the community, but my dad is getting a well-deserved retirement, and I wish him the best. He sometimes watches these podcasts. He sometimes doesn't. What a great father he is, of course. But Dad, if you're watching this, congrats on retirement.
What's your dad's first name?
John.
John? I think that's an automatic OG win for John, so he gets that this week. That's pretty cool. You guys have gotten some of my clowns, so I've only got a few left to add to it. We talked recently about the vandalism of the Wheeling Township Republican office. Well, we now know who, at least allegedly, but these 2 individuals were arrested and found for doing this, Brock and Moisette McInerney. So to piggyback on the previous clown nomination, we now have 2 names to add to it. They vandalized, if you missed it, they vandalized the Wheeling Republican office with Nazi symbols and feces. So hopefully they are found guilty and they could think about their crimes for a while. Next one here is a Boone County board member, Marion Thornberry. He's been censured because he was caught stealing, but here's the deal, a $20 bill from a donation envelope at a Belvedere church. How depraved do you have to be to steal from a church a donation envelope, and it's $20? How depraved do you have to be? So this is also another almost guaranteed con of the week win for this Boone County board member, Marion Thornberry. Come on, man. Come on, be better than that. Another one here is JB Pritzker. Both Patrick Fingston and my heads exploded, and probably many others, when in the story from the Chicago Tribune, this was called out, these texts between Mendoza and Pritzker about whether or not Illinois should opt in to this federal voucher program. And you can have any position you want to have on that. Some people agree with it. Some people disagree with it, and that's fine. But Pritzker's reasoning for this is that the money could go to schools that teach values that are racist or anti-Semitic or anti-American. They could teach children that gay people are evil, or that the KKK was fighting against the decline of morality, that white supremacy is God's will. And that's why he doesn't support this. The generalization of our private schools, that they're all out there advocating for the KKK and white supremacy, that they're all anti-gay and racist. It's just... There are so many of these schools throughout the state of Illinois. And yes, I understand that the state focus is on public schools. I respect that, and I put a lot of effort into public schools. But it is absolutely beyond the pale to generalize about our private schools and our religious schools, that they're all these awful schools that are teaching these horrible notions. That's how wildly partisan our governor is in this state. It's just pathetic.
It's about control.
Yeah, pretty much.
Right.
Last
if
one
we're
here.
Outside his control, then.
Last one here is all of the Democrats and talk show hosts that are attacking the new DHS Secretary Mullen. Listen, I don't know the guy. I don't know what he stands for, and I have vocally said my frustrations with DHS. So this has nothing to do with him. But they've been attacking him for his lack of education and the fact that he's a plumber. 62% of American adults don't have a 4-year degree. And our buddy John Giocaris, who's been on before, he posted this, and this is true, how this just shows the Democratic transition from the party that used to be about working class Americans, that's now just a party of college educated coastal elites, that we're going to attack the guy because he doesn't have a college degree or because he was a plumber. That apparently isn't good enough to serve in government. Well, as somebody who doesn't have a college degree, I say screw you and screw that. Everybody has a right to serve in their government, not just the people who align with your worldview or have the level of education you think is required. Those of us who didn't get a chance to go to college are more educated than many of you because we had to go out and learn it on our own. So cut it out.
The only plumbers that elitists like JB Pritzker likes are the ones that take the toilets out of his house so he doesn't have to pay property taxes.
All right, let's end with our closing thoughts. Michael, you just unmuted yourself, so go ahead. You get to the first word on closing thoughts.
Well, I was just going to say, we talked about it earlier. I think Larry mentioned it. 4th of July, that's when people start paying attention, and, that's kind of tried and true politics. But we as operatives, as candidates, etc., you have to start laying the groundwork now for that. Like, start putting your plan in place, start getting quotes on mail and other things, because you have to be prepared to hit the ground running. Because obviously, we've got some serious headwinds. They're going to spend a lot more money than we are. They always do. But we have to be efficient with the resources and the opportunities that we have. And if you don't start preparing now, you're going to be in a world of hurt later.
Chris.
So we're in Holy Week right now, and by the time you watch this, it'll be Good Friday. And I encourage all of you to take the time this week to pray for your elected officials, for the president, for our governor, for your congressman, for everybody, that they're be granted the wisdom to actually govern effectively and within Christian values. Remember that our religion is one of peace, and that's something that should be reflected in our ideology and our policies. So everyone have a very blessed Holy Week. Have a blessed Easter. To those of you on the Julian calendar, please have a blessed Palm Sunday this week, and I'll wish you a happy Easter next week. So thank you, and have a wonderful Holy Week.
Our 2 guests have been awesome. We'll let the elected official go last. So Larry, go ahead.
Thank you, Collin. My message, first of all, thanks for having me again. It was great. My message is all the Republican officials out there, the party people, stop fighting over who's in charge of the sandbox. We've had that for decades. We need to band together. The sandbox has now shrunk to a pail of sand with a small toy plastic bucket in it. We have to band together. Otherwise, we have no hope.
So, very well put, Larry. Senator, thank you for being with us. Your final word.
Yeah, well, I'll kind of add on for what Larry talked about, right? When we have these fights, you would like to think that it's over something significant, some amount of power. But when you're in the super minorities and you're losing the fight, there's no room for the infighting. So from that perspective, take that to your family, right? We've got the holidays that Chris just talked about. We have a chance to rebirth and recommit to those that we love, those that we care about, our community, those neighbors that maybe you haven't seen for a few months as everyone's stuck indoors. Look forward to Mother Nature getting it under control, and plan on having an outdoorsy, very enjoyable summertime.
I'll close with this. If any episode didn't make the stakes in this election clear for you, it better be this one. The young people in this state who are paying the price for bad policy, bad politics, bad politicians. 22% showed up for this primary, roughly. Of that, Republicans were less than half of that. That's not good enough, guys. You get the government you deserve. You get the government of those who show up. We've got to do a heck of a lot better job. And if it's not clear to you now, the stakes in this election, it never will be. So sure, it's a holiday, and it's a very important holiday this weekend. Take time with family, but then get it off your butts and let's go out there, because this is real, guys. People are paying the price. With
Don't
that,
just be a
you,
Christmas and Easter Republican.
There you go. Nice. All right. Lane Davis, our producer, thank you. To our two guests, this was an extra long episode since we had some huge topics to get through. So thank you for making time in your busy schedules. Michael and Chris, thank you guys too. We'll catch you all next week on the Smoke Filled Room.